Thank you very much, Icek. The introduction was great. My name is Tomas Gonsoncik, Chief Strategy Officer at VMLY&R, and I'm delighted to talk to you today about talent management, how to attract and retain talent. I am excited to be speaking to you today. I'm a big fan of our Turkish agency. It's a great team, and I'm very excited to be speaking to you today about what's happening with talent around the world. I'm also privileged to know that my head of strategy in New York is Turkish's very own Bediz Eker. Some shout out to Bediz if he's on, or if any of the colleagues know him. He's a great friend and an amazing, amazing strategist. So this is a privilege to be speaking to you today. In the spirit of giving the story away in the first minute of the time that I have with you, I'm going to say that today I'll be talking about 4 key principles that I believe will set up talent organizations for success as we look to ride out the rest of the pandemic and as we think about the future. We'll talk about the outcomes that we set as leaders for our talent to feel that they have a sense of direction and sense of purpose. Secondly, we talk about the importance of culture, how we create a sense of belonging and self-actualization in how people work. Thirdly, we'll talk about the importance of corporate purpose in getting people engaged, giving people a reason why they come to work. And lastly, creating a self-sustaining community of professionals that make up our organizations. It's going to be a lot of fun, I hope, in the half an hour that we have together. But of course, this is the pandemic edition. Normally, I'll be talking about the vibrant forces that are impacting how people choose their careers, but we all know about the turnover issues. We all know about the struggles that young people have when they enter the workforce today. I think a lot of the opportunities to network, to learn from their colleagues have been taken away from them. I think it's on us to work almost a bit too much to make sure that everyone feels more welcome in their respective organizations that they ever were before. So I think as we go through it, we'll touch upon the impact of COVID on how we work amongst ourselves, on the agency and client dynamic. And I think it's very complicated. So I think let's see. But first of all, let me say a quick hello. My name is Tomas. It's a fun name. As you can see, this is me looking professional. And this is me with my son riding out the pandemic. Over the last year, as many of you have, I've experienced working from home, being a dad, homeschooling my son, and then pitching business, talking to organizations around the world about the future of marketing and future of brands. I think, to say the least, it's been quite the ride, as I'm sure it's been for many of you. If the accent doesn't give it away, and I'd be surprised if it does, I am from Slovakia originally. I was formed professionally in London, and today, this wall that you see behind me is not virtual. I'm in New York right now. It's a kind of stereotypical New York apartment that I'm calling and talking to you from today. In terms of my kind of short career at VMLY&R, I've spent good 10 years with the agency, which is I think it's been a privilege, to be honest, because I've been able to see the transformation of our agency brand from being a specialist agency to a full service marketing services provider. And I've also experienced kind of the various work cultures between London, New York, and many other offices that I've had the chance to work with over the years. Today, I look after our strategy team around the world, and it's a great privilege to do that on behalf of the agency. Over the years, I've also worked on marketing programs with all sorts of brands, from the brand transformation of New Balance over the last 5 years to the launch of various Olympic Games promotional communications with the International Olympic Committee, to some fun work with Colgate, SAP, Ford. Needless to say, I think I love what I do. I love our client partners, because I think we're on a great mission together as a group. I should also say that over the 10-year tenure, the size and the scale of the talent that I manage has significantly altered. When I joined in 2011, my immediate collective was perhaps 4 or 5 strategists. Today, I have the privilege and the exciting duty to look after over 700 strategists that are part of the VMLY&R family. So if we're talking about attaining or retaining or attracting talent, I'll be very happy to talk about what that means when you do it at the country level, regionally. How do you think about the agency brand that you're building, and what kind of momentum that creates for the community of people that choose to work in the agency? If there's one statement that I would love for you to take away from today's talk, it is this. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but I can guarantee you it has been carrying me over the last few years, and it's my North Star, it's a guiding principle when it comes to looking after my people and managing talent in the agency. And it says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. What I love about this statement is that it allows us to talk about the importance of individuality. I think many of us often feel that we can be constrained by the structures in which we operate. We can feel constrained by the teams that we are dependent on. And I think there are definitely moments in time when it makes sense for us all to operate as individual contributors. But I think for us to achieve greatness, to help our clients grow, to help our marketing organizations to be successful in driving growth for the business as clients, we need to plan to go far, because it's a marathon, right? When it comes to marketing growth. And in order to do that, we need to go together as a community of people that have various specialisms, that come from various cultures, come from various motivations as to why they work together. I think it's our responsibility as leaders to look after and manage this togetherness of us all. And when we talk about this notion of collective responsibility and the community that we're building, I'm sure this is not new to you, but it's I find it particularly curious how relevant and it has become during the pandemic. And that is the notion that when we think about not only marketing, but when we think about business, how growth happens in the economy, historically, of course, we think about the role of an organization as a group of people that have a intellectual property that they use to extract value from the market in order to return profit to their shareholders, whether it's a privately owned company, to the owners of the company, or a publicly traded business in which they operate. Now, I think what COVID has accelerated is a trend towards seeing that relationship as more of a relationship of a stake, where various groups of individuals and communities have a stake in the business success. That, of course, includes the shareholders, but it also includes the employees. It includes the communities in which the business operates. It includes the government. It includes the NGOs. It's the wider ecosystem that the company operates in. And I think it's this notion of a stake that employees have in a business that I think is defining people's motivations as to why they choose one company over the other, and why they choose to dedicate their career, ideally their entire career, to a single business. It starts with a simple notion of a purpose. I think, on one hand, one extreme, you have the examples of the Patagonias of the world, where, the business exists to save the planet, because if there's no planet and no nature to explore, then there's no reason for Patagonia's products to exist. On the other hand, British Petroleum has got an equally admirable and active purpose, which is to power the world. And I think it's this notion of answering a very simple question of why are we here, that every company needs to make sure that it really knows and really articulates in order for people to know why they turn up to work every single day. Why when they wake up in the morning, they open their laptop in their homes today and they spend 8, 10, 12 and more hours on Zoom or Teams calls driving their company forward. Now, there's an interesting HBR article on the subject from last year that I would encourage you to read, that talks about the notion that when it comes to purpose, I think it's very easy to ask, say, a board of a company or a C-suite of a company what your purpose is. I think generally people would have a very clear view of what that is. But the true resilience of a business is measured by the day-to-day person, whether that's someone that works on the factory floor, or the account manager that just started in an agency, or a brand manager that looks after a specific part of the portfolio. Are they fully aware, fully aligned to the purpose of the company? Because if they're not, that means that whatever the corporation agreed the purpose is not trickling down and is not informing the actions of everyone in the business. And then, of course, that's when problems come. Now, I think not every purpose statement is measured the same or should be measured the same. And personally, I rely on our database of brands, brand asset evaluator, and brand equity measurement that we have at VMLY&R. It's been running for over 27, 28 years around the world. And it measures brands on 75 different attributes. We look at people's emotional connection with brands. We look at how people perceive their innovative potential. I believe the data in Turkey has been running since 2006, and the 2021 data will be available soon. So I think it's an interesting exercise to perform in country. And what the data tells us is that purpose doesn't necessarily need to mean that we want to go out there and save the planet. It means that we need to have a mission that creates impact in the world and creates impact for the business, but the path to that purpose can take many different directions. Of course, it can be your purpose around driving environmental impact, that is kind of classic, I think the language that you've been hearing over the last few years, but there are many other ways. You can base your purpose on being an innovative, pioneering brand. You can be the brand that performs best in something, and it's the performance that gives it purpose. It's the prestige and uniqueness of the brand. It's the social aspect of it. You see this a lot with say telecommunications brands or many of the kind of alcohol entertainment brands as well. You can be a heritage brand. You exist to protect something that you've had for many, many years. That's where I think luxury plays quite a lot. Or it can be a kind brand that is very much about embracing and supporting community which it serves. So I think but it's important to articulate it, because without the articulation, why are we here? I would be remiss not to touch upon the fact that in many service-led organizations, and I think that absolutely includes communications agencies, marketing services providers of any kind, but then also many brands as well. As a service-led organization, by definition, you are somewhat reactive. You respond to an RFP, for instance. So by definition, you are somewhat reactive. The range of your clients is really diverse. The range of your customers is really diverse. So what purpose do you really, really have? And based on the research that we've done with the Institute for Real Growth, which is a global group focused on how are we really thinking about growth for business, the research tells us that I think what truly matters is the impact that we want to create on the economy and the way we think about marketing as a contributor to broader society. What kind of brands do we want to be building? What kind of value do we want to be providing to our customers? So I truly encourage you to think about what purpose really means, even if you work in an agency. What kind of economy do you want to create? What kind of a marketing environment do you want to create for the world and consumers in Turkey? Because I think that's where it gets both interesting for, I think, your positioning in the marketplace, and also it gets, of course, interesting for the employees looking to work for you. Now, I think the glue that makes all of this happen, the reason why I think purpose exists in organizations is through the notion of culture. Now, I feel like I do need to offer some pretty authentic, gory details from my own experience of being part of the team that merged VML and Y&R together. And I know that mergers and acquisitions and integrations are a big part of the agency landscape today. That they've been part of the world of, say, CPG mergers for a very long time. So let's talk about that for a little bit. This is an image of the first meeting that happened between the VML and Y&R employees in 2018. And it was a speed date that we organized to say, well, we've been brought together by our organizations. We need to figure out how to work together for the benefit of our clients. What are we going to do? And to this day, I have this picture printed. I use it in my presentations. I remind myself of it every single day, because the visual itself indicates how opposing cultures, how different cultures, how different ways of working, how different approaches to what, say, creative brief is or what creative excellence looks like, this is what it feels like. You're staring at each other and trying to figure out how you come together. So I think when a new employee joins an organization, that's probably what they're thinking about. How do I evaluate the people that I'm surrounded by? How do I look at the community of people around me? Do I feel connected to them? Now, the best thing that happened for us is an introduction of a program called Connected People. And I encourage you all to think about the programs that you are putting forward in order to drive the retention of your team. Connected People is a program that we dedicated towards building the culture of the team, building connectedness of the team, and it's both inside the agency and towards the rest of the industry. It included an apprenticeship program for new people coming into the business. It included academic relationships, and it included really heavy focus on socialization and understanding who people are and what truly matters to them. Frankly, I'm sure as you are all very busy with simply driving your business, a lot of these things kind of feel like the last thing on the list, on any given day. But imagine if for the first 6 months of the merger experience, this was the thing that personally I as a leader have obsessed about every single day. We even identified someone from the team who was a great community builder to become the chief of staff for the department and to be basically the community manager for the organization. And I'll tell you that when we look at the world today, many of our clients, many of the technology startups out there are hiring dedicated, very senior community manager roles for their teams. Because if you are unable to be in the office together, you need someone basically dedicated towards bringing people together, hence Connected People. I'm not going to entertain you too much with what happened as a result of the Connected People program, but what I'll point you to is on the top right, we have a scented candle making workshop. On the top left, we have a quiz, kind of pub quiz situation. On the bottom right, I was gifted the original focus group recording device from Y&R from 1970s. As you can, I'm not sure if you can see it on the image, it says recording opinion meter, where you can dial the sensitivity of the responses. It's the most fun thing, but I love, we learned about the history of each of the companies. And to me, like the best example of the outcome is in the frame picture, you have a photoshopped image of our New York CEO and myself as part of a pub quiz game. And I think people having the complete confidence to play with your leaders in such a way was just a great testament to me that people feel involved, that people feel engaged. And I think with that, you can do greater, more profound things, such as the notion of putting everything you are into everything you do when times get tough, such as when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion as a big topic for our industry. How do we make sure that groups that are historically underrepresented feel involved, both as employees of our organizations, but then also as people that we market to on behalf of our clients. When we launched the transformation program at VMLY&R, the agency was engaged because we're basically cashing in the chips that we invested in the culture to begin with. Again, too much detail here, but just to give you a sense of once the employee is engaged, great extracurricular things can happen. Probably the best expression of that is our work with VMLY&R Foundation. We have a dedicated charitable organization next to the agency whose sole focus is to channel our employees' passion into charitable causes. We match people's donations. We offer free time. I believe it's number of days every year where people can dedicate to a charity of their own cause. And then once a year, we close down the office, and around the world we mobilize all of our teams to commit to a local charity and commit their time towards creating an impact on that given day. Now, of course, during the pandemic, it's very easy to say, well, it's best to stay safe and stay at home, but instead we persevered. And in the countries where COVID was more managed, we were able to get out there. I personally was in a community garden here in New York, helping to plant produce, vegetables and fruit for people that otherwise wouldn't have access to fresh food. So I think and I'm sure it's a problem widely around the world. Other people participated in online mentoring sessions where they provide mentorship advice to people trying to get into the industry. And I think, again, through the notion of embracing employees for more than just, people that create value through, great research, great strategy, great creative, great marketing plans, we're able to, I think, come together as a group. And I think the numbers can speak for themselves. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it was our most successful foundation day ever that we've been running for 20 years. And I think it is because somehow, strangely, this COVID reality brought us together even closer. So when it comes to how many people participated, which communities we impacted, it's truly heartwarming. But what I'll tell you is all of this culture stuff. I'll just say it that way. Can sometimes feel like we're only adding more to people's plates as opposed to taking something out. I'm sure you all feel stretched. I'm sure you all feel really hard. You work really hard, and I can guarantee you that you're not alone in this. According to a recent report about burnout driven by COVID, it's quite interesting. The company's reaction to burnout, like automatic reaction to burnout, is to invest in wellness programs. Let's get people into gyms or give them meditation apps, things like that. But actually, the issue with burnout is people's sense of lack of control. That I work too much. I don't feel like I'm in control of my own destiny. That I feel like the community around me is not working as hard or is not supportive enough. It's not fair that I work so much. And so, frankly, that's actually all of these symptoms are driven by lack of structure, lack of articulation of the vision through, I think, very clear objectives at an individual level. And I think if there's one thing that I think as a kind of practical advice that I would love to impart on you as part of this session, it's this notion of how do we manage outcomes as leaders in organizations? Because when it comes to bringing people in and making sure that they stay in our organization, that they provide value and they feel truly fulfilled in their careers, it is about setting the right purpose, which then translates into the outcomes that we're looking for our people to deliver every single day. And the methodology that has been serving me extremely well, and I cannot recommend it enough. If John Doerr had a little affiliate scheme, I'm sure I probably wouldn't need to work at this point because I talk about OKRs all the time. I'm just going to say that objectives and key results for me are the definition of what modern people management and modern leadership looks like. It's a methodology that's originated out of Intel, out of all places, but then made its way through Google, many other high growth organizations. And I use it every day to manage the team that I described to you earlier in the presentation. It's very simple. Once a year or once a quarter, I list the strategic objectives that I believe we need to achieve as a team. And then I list very clear key results that you can measure by yes or no, 8 out of 10. But are very attainable to people. It's something that I can start with today, and I feel like I can get done in the next week or so. It gives people a sense of I can latch onto this and I can get it done, as opposed to a lofty goal that's very difficult to execute in your day-to-day. It's also an invitation for people, because when as a leader you say, well, my OKRs for the year are such and such, and I believe that will be better agency, better brand, better organization. After those 12 months, should we achieve 70% of this, then I think it's an inspiration for people, because you're basically saying, look, we have these 4 peaks on this mountain that we need to climb. We need to plant our flag on these 4 mountains. Help me do it, because we're not going to do it together. The conditions are too severe. It's windy. We'll need someone to carry the food. We'll need someone to carry the tents. We all need to do this together. But you divulge the responsibility to your team to say, well, how are we collectively going to do it, as opposed to me as a leader carry the whole thing. So I think it's a really effective way of empowering your team to say, let's do this together. Secondly, it's a great way of engaging people, and I think it's a way of I think if you position your objectives for the organization as an invitation for people to participate. It allows a leader allows you to see what are people truly passionate about. And instead of asking them, like a quarterly review, how they feel, like what do you feel passionate about, you see it. You see it in the actions that they take. You see it in their own OKRs that they write for themselves. So it leads to an engaged employee group, which I think then I think fuels sense of independence. Especially, I think, the young generation coming into the workforce, I think people have seen the previous generations work, right? And they've seen what it means to be a company man or woman. And it doesn't necessarily feel like you're really in charge of your own destiny. Because and then the OKR framework gives people that sense of independence. I'm charting my own path within the overall framework, but it's in my own hands. Now you might ask, like, how do you manage this? Like, especially as you scale, how do you go about doing that? I'm sure, you've heard, and, it's a big part of our work, the notion of customer experience. How can we expand the role of marketing communication into the world of experience, where we don't just communicate to people, but we create service and experiences for people on behalf of the brand? Well, I would argue, and I think we would argue, that the same methodology applies to how we think about our employees and how we think about the experience that we provide to them. The key methodology to look into and take into account is notion of human-centered design, where we design the employment experience around the individual at this very interesting intersection of what makes sense for the business and what's valuable for people. And I would really encourage you to, as you're designing, say, the next year for your team, to think about, what's desirable for your people, like what do people actually want, what's viable in terms of what we can afford as a company to give them, and what's feasible in the time frame that we have in front of us. And that intersection of that, I'm sure you'll end up with a really great employment engagement program. Because how I tend to think about it is that the moment you start seeing employment as an experience, it opens up opportunities, because you can suddenly manage the employee experience through the lens of a customer journey. And excuse like the squiggly lines, I had fun with our head of people putting this together. Because I think, like, as a leader, the level of touch that you provide to your people changes, right? When you're trying to hire someone, you want to attract them into the organization, but then also when they're part of the team already, like, how do you manage the onboarding process really effectively to bring them into the culture, bring them into the community? And then over time, of course, you need to think about the ways you develop them, you retain them, but then also, should they leave, how do you offboard them from the organization in the way that, leaves them feeling like this is a great place that I could come back to? And I think across each of these touch points, there's a way to have an experience, a communication, an asset that you offer to the individual, but it can do really, really great things for just how you think about the engagement. It really becomes almost an employee CRM program, this employee experience program. So when you talk about attaining and attracting talent, I'm just going to say it's very hard at the moment, right? Because, ideally we would all be in the room together right now and we could see each other's reaction. And the same thing happens in the day-to-day workplace. Turnover is a big issue. Retaining people is a big issue. And so I think the best that we can do as leaders, and I truly, truly believe that this is a transformational moment for us as an industry, is to think of when individuals want to go fast in our company, we empower them to do so alone. But if they want to go far in their career, in terms of their impact on the world, they need to feel like they're part of a community. So therefore, when it comes to people operating as individuals, they need to feel that there are outcomes we want them to achieve, but they can make them their own through the framework of OKRs. And when they go alone within the culture that we create in terms of the values and in terms of the support network that exists through that culture. But if people want to go far, if they believe that there are 6 mountains that we need to climb as an organization in order to be successful, to transform how marketing happens in a specific category, to start a completely new brand, they need to have a sense of purpose. They need to know what the path to that purpose is and how that's going to make them feel fulfilled and answer their why am I here, but then also how that's going to impact the wider stakeholder world around them. Because when we then go together, I think what truly matters is that we do so as a community, as leaders, as our employees, as other stakeholders that are part of our brand's ecosystem, whether these are the consumers, the people that, say develop and produce the product, whether it's, it's potato chips and farmers, that should very much be all part of the community that we all fully feel responsibility for. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much. It's a privilege to share this view with you. I love what I do because it's people's business, and as you know, things are messy when you deal with people. But I find it extremely rewarding. So I hope that the lessons around the outcomes, culture, purpose, and community are helpful to you. I'm sharing my details on this last slide. Do not hesitate to get in touch. And Zizek and the team, thank you again so much for having me. It's been a privilege. Thank you.